Hi guys, we're back here with another video. We're doing this book uh, about artificial intelligence, AI, called Genesis, Artificial Intelligence, Hope, and the Human Spirit, co-written by Henry Kissinger, Craig Mundie, and Eric Schmidt, one of the old Google CEOs, executives of Google, no longer with them, I believe, but nonetheless, influential figure in technology and developments in technology. So a little bit of a backstory context for this book. Obviously the title Genesis kind of implies a new beginning. Uh, you know, the first book of the Bible where the universe gets created. More on this later. I'll touch on that later. The significance of that, of the choice of the title. However, let me just begin by saying that although Henry Kissinger remains a widely respected and largely acclaimed diplomat and statesman within the United States, uh, that is not the reason I chose to review this book. If it were just for his foreign policy exploits, you know, and that alone, I would stay as far away from this book as possible. However, as Niall Ferguson puts it in the foreword to this book, it is no surprise that the same man who sought to understand and apprehend nuclear weapons and their impact on foreign policy all the way back in 1957, to give you an idea of how long he's been in public life and have had influence on developments in politics, philosophy, society, general government, whatever. So yeah, he wrote one of his first books in 1957, and he had interest in the cutting edge advancements of the contemporary period in his time, which was nuclear weapons. And it's no surprise that he still had that same interest in the cutting edge advancements, even in his dying years. A year or two ago when this book was published in 2024. Um, in any case, just how nuclear weapons transform the world, for better or for worse, so too will AI. At least that is the argument. That's one of the main reasons uh, for their writing this book. This is a key point as well, insofar as during the Cold War there was an arms race, nuclear weapons arms race, um, as in literal arms. And it seems that our contemporary arms race is in the form of AI technology development, with the amount of money being invested, research, resources, energy, whatever you can imagine, being put into this field. Um, yeah. So it is interesting how Kissinger's career kind of came full circle in a way, with one of his first major works being on nuclear weapons and one of his last being about AI, but both importantly being about that era's arms race, respectively. Anyways, that's enough about Kissinger himself. Let's get to the book. Very importantly to begin with is the title, as I mentioned already, Genesis, the first book of the Bible, or Torah, whichever you prefer, implying that if AI lives up to its promise, it will be like a new beginning, a kind of, uh, you can say reset or a new birth, new awakening. Again, we're going to touch on all these points later. Leaving to the side for a moment whether AGI, artificial general intelligence, the thus far elusive and perhaps, in fact, altogether illusory and ill-defined end goal of AI development, is even achievable, the sheer breadth and depth of a proposed second Genesis should not be hand-waved away. Um, you know, you don't have to like these people who wrote this book. You don't have to agree with everything they have to say, but clearly they are, preeminent figures and thinkers on these topics. So one would think they have some idea of like where it's headed, what it's gonna do, and then the disagreements might be at the edges of whether we think these things are good or not. But whether this is where we're headed seems to be more or less agreed upon. Um, Yeah, so the title Genesis, it implies not something like tectonic plates shifting, as nuclear weapons development might have been, but a rebirth of an entirely new Earth, basically. Um, Without drowning in the details of the book, I will try to highlight some key takeaways. One of the main differences between humans and AI is the sheer speed at which it operates, and they touch on this on page 41, which I will quote. Um, Page 41, near the middle of it. And thus, speed has proven itself to be the first in a handful of core attributes that distinguish AI from our human form and mental capabilities. Um, yeah, so, what's a common refrain from a lot of people, humans, especially people who keep busy, is that humans may often feel like they don't have enough time in a day to complete everything they want to before they need to sleep. Computers naturally are much less encumbered by time constraints, though this may well change as the problems they are presented with get increasingly more complex and, uh, you know, difficult to disentangle. Uh, but as at present, they're able to do things so much faster. For example, some very good example is like you can, instead of watching a 20-25 minute YouTube video, you can say, send the link to AI, say, summarize the key points from this for me, and it gives you a decent idea of what's going on in the video. You can do it for books as well. I don't think it replaces reading the book as yet, and maybe it never will, but it gives you the gist of it. Uh, you know, Even now, and this is like we think AI is still in its infancy. There's still a long way to go. So, yeah, page 50. There's another quote that I want to read at length, kind of here. Uh, yeah. For instance, the infrastructure that has made recent AI advancements possible is known as the transformer. It allows the machine to consider, for instance, the connections among multiple words at once. In lay speak, where previous structures read words one at a time, capturing only the connection between word one and two, then separately the connection between two and three, the transformer allows the model to capture all at once, both a whole sentence and every connection between every word in the sentence, creating and utilizing mathematical representations of all these connections. The AI predicts the best response based on the input is given. So your prompts to the chatbot, if that's what the AI you're using is just a chatbot, you send it a sentence, it reads it, does all that mathematical analysis, and it tailors its response in such a way that is kind of guessing the next best word, the most likely next best word in its response. It goes on, same page. The capabilities of transformers were not anticipated, and their highly generalizable successes occurred almost incidentally. And transformers are not necessarily the only foundational infrastructure that can yield unexpected capabilities. As more fruitful avenues of research emerge, AI outputs will improve quickly, multiplying along different lines of physical and mathematical logic at lower expense and faster speed. Yeah. So basically, the point made here is the point I want to get at. It's not the point explicitly being made. Is that I think this model, while it's led to huge advancements, I don't think we can say that this is what reasoning is yet. I don't think AIs can reason independently yet. It seems to be, this is why a lot of things like hallucinations and like misrepresentation of facts and misdescriptions still happen, is because it's not just giving you, it's not the same as like a Google search where it's just giving you search results based on what your input is. Like, I want to see the news in Russia, and it gives you the top most clicked results or something. It's kind of trying to summarize a unbelievable breadth of information and mathematically represent it in such a way that it's guessing what's coming next, basically. So it's not reasoning in the way I think we think that we do. So it's not there yet. I think a further advancement needs to happen in this development model to get them to actually surpass human reasoning ability and capabilities. Like some people seem to be thinking that, PhDs are going to be put out of business soon. Um, I don't think it's there yet. It might get there one day. I think that's the promise that the CEOs of these companies are trying to make, to get unlimited investment from, government and private sector investors. But I think a further step needs to happen before that's realized. Um, yeah. So then there's page 60. More likely, the architects of AI will hold the human being to be our guide as well as cautionary tale. Its design scrutinized for both its functions and its flaws. The human brain therefore becomes not the goal and not a blueprint, but a midpoint and an inspiration towards something greater. And then he goes on further down the page. We are trying to build something modeled on the brain and superior to the brain while still not fully understanding the brain itself. How does one exceed, even in design, what one does not understand to begin with? Um, so I interpret this as a kind of like a human intelligence as being not an end to replicate, but something to overcome, kind of like a Nietzsche Ubermensch type thing. It's like we need to overcome the limitations of our biological organic bodies and minds and time, and it sees itself as like a these people are seeing it as like a bridge between an advancement, a furtherance, a step forward in a it's like a transmutation. It's like a, some might say, even some people hope to achieve some sort of transhumanism where we merge with robotics and AI and alter our minds and make, you know, we also become unencumbered by time or less encumbered by time than we were previously, where the speed of our minds can only go so fast. Whereas if we computerize it, it speeds everything up. Okay. So next point, page 101. Yeah. Uh, this is the Prometheus section of the politics chapter, or section. It says an AI fueled administration could, in the words of one neuropsychologist, claim to know what its people truly want and what will really make them happy. At best, used to justify paternalism, and at worst, totalitarianism. Uh, I think this is a good point that they bring to the table, is that, you know, totalitarianism is a risk that you run with if you want to supplant our current forms of governance and understandings of democracy and rule of law and politics and representation. If you want to completely supplant this with just an all-knowing AI that kind of gets input from people and then, kind of amalgamates, brings them together and gets an output based on the general will, if you will. This can cause, I think, major problems, at least in the sense of it will greatly alter our way of thinking about what we should be doing and what we should be pursuing. Um, whether our democratic norms and ideas survive this kind of development, if this is the path we take, is an important question. I'm not so sure. Okay. Now on to page 123. Here's a section that I thought was important. The meaning of this ancient myth, the ancient myth of Baldur, for our modern predicament is simple and chilling. As threats grow ever more obfuscated and sophisticated, humanity's defenses against them must be ever more perfect, since the slightest mistake or omission could spell defeat. And to achieve that level of perfection, we might well need the assistance of AI. Um, so it's saying basically we need to combat the defend ourselves from the dangers of AI with more AI. So I wrote in the side margins here, what the fuck are they talking about, basically? Because here it seems like they're saying, a misaligned or otherwise not an AI system that is like not in accordance with what we want it to do and how we want it to behave is a danger potentially. But it should be self-regulating at the same time, as in it should uh, do that for it should regulate itself from the dangers it poses to us. I don't think that makes any sense logically or in any way, in any sense of the word. Anyways, that's just I'm reading directly from the book. I'm not misrepresenting their argument here. Anyways, then I think this is one of the last quotes from the book. It's near the end, page 184. The question is this: will we become more like them, being AI, or will they become more like us? Uh, you know, Eliza Yudkowsky is mentioned near this section of the book, I believe, around some of these pages. But the problem of alignment only gets a passing mention, maybe 5 to 10 pages maximum in the whole book out of 220 plus pages. This is one of the big pitfalls of the book, I think. The dangers or the risks are basically ignored or at best hand waved away as minor concerns. I think we can look at something like the classic movie Stanley Kubrick, 2001: A Space Odyssey, one of my favorite movies of all time. And we can see how, you know, that understanding of AI and misaligned AI and the dangers of it. While this is sci-fi, obviously it's not describing something real that happens, not based on a true story as yet. I think it was that movie was made in the 60s, I believe. But still, I think it remains influential in our understanding of like if we do develop something that is faster than us, smarter than us, more capable than us, more cunning, more intelligent and fast, and able to predict and maneuver and react according to changing variables. And on top of that, if it's not aligned with what we want it to be doing for us and helping us, and in a sense, if it's not co if we're not co-inhabitors of our reality and our predicament, rather than one becomes dominant over the other and kind of uses it as its slave, then that's a risk, obviously, and should not be ignored or hand waved away that easily. Um, this reminds me, very much of the perspective of someone like Peter Thiel. This idea of that, like the dangers of AI are overblown or not to be taken too seriously. Uh, Thiel is someone who labels people who question or want to limit or curtail the development of AI until we can be more certain of its efficacy and alignment as the Antichrist. People like Greta Thunberg and aforementioned Eliza Yudkowsky have drawn his ire and his labeling of as the potential Antichrist. He said this, you can find the videos. I'm sure I don't have it. Uh, I'm not going to have it appended to this video, but you can find it in text form or video, I'm sure, on YouTube. Can we really take this argument from Thiel seriously when it is being said by someone, Thiel himself, who, upon being asked by the New York Times journalist Ross Douthat whether he would prefer the human race to endure, he replied with, yeah, well, and hesitates to give a straightforward, conclusive answer, and then follow it up by explaining his answer, rather than he hesitates first to give that answer, which Ross Douthat picks up on almost instantly and says, "You're hesitating. Why are you hesitating? Is this like difficult to answer? Is this a complicated question?" So is what Thiel has in mind a transhumanist future where we merge with AI and robots and thus become artificial rather than simply organic beings? Or is the goal for AI to supplant humanity altogether? Um, I think it's probably closer to the former rather than the latter, but uh, his hesitation upon being asked this question, leaves kind of the answer murky. I don't know if it's all that clear what his goal is or his vision is. Um, yeah, this is going to be the last quote on page 195. Uh, but the task is still far from being ended, and questions proliferate. For instance, how might we humans go about distinguishing for AI and in the process for ourselves the necessary attributes of truth? In the age of AI, after all, even first principles will undergo continual revision and invalidation. Precisely this, however, should provide an opportunity for renewal, for correcting prior errors and forging new ground. Knowing that our concepts of reality may also change, we should not lock AI into potentially erroneous truths that would inhibit their own eventual reconsiderations. Um, so I wrote in the margins here, so is AI going to interpret reality for us going forward? Or at least, once it gets more advanced than us in its reasoning and its speed. Speed is already faster than us, but once it gets more advanced in its reasoning, is this purpose going to serve to interpret reality for us, not in conjunction with us, together with us, but for us, and then therefore shaping our reality? It reminds me of what someone on Twitter said, which is that from the author's perspective, the real promise of AI is as a tool of perception manipulation, that eventually people will not be able to interpret or perceive reality without the help of an AI via cognitive diminishment and learned helplessness. Uh, this is maybe the biggest risk of AI that it poses, I think, currently, at least as it stands. As it currently stands, barring another major innovation or breakthrough, as I mentioned before, I don't think AI is approaching the point where its reasoning capacities exceed that of, well learned and read and considered human beings. Like it's not a PhD level reasoning capacity in any field, I don't think. But I believe this is the major risk of AI as it stands currently. It is not the point where it can cause the loss of tens of millions of jobs, at least not yet. But with stuff like deep fakes, realistic video, audio copying and editing ability, among many other abilities it has, uh, it's the risk it poses is to manipulate perception based on how its designers or owners decide. You can think of how many people on Twitter are already asking Grok in the comments of every single post, is this real? Did this happen? Asking at Grok, did this occur? Is this real? Is this not AI? So they're asking AI to confirm or deny whether what they're seeing is AI. Um, yeah, obviously big funding from Elon Musk, the XAI project. So many people already are asking to confirm a fact or an event, or already using it to shape what they believe, and they're doing this willingly. They're willingly asking AI to interpret or confirm reality for them. So just imagine what will be done unwillingly or unwittingly as it gets more advanced going forward. So that's the big risks I see ahead, at least in the near-term future for us as humans. Um, this is the book, like I said. It's an interesting read. I would pick it up if you're interested in the topic. Um, I think it kind of hand waves away some important um, uh, ideas and objections to its reasoning and arguments, but ultimately it's a worthwhile read to get the perspective of some eminent workers in this field. Um, eminent, well, maybe not workers, but executives in this field, and it gives you the idea of where their head is at about these developments. All right, guys, thank you for watching. I'll be back soon with another one, I hope. But this is a topic I wanted to get to, in me as soon as possible after reading it. So If you can like, comment, subscribe if you like this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.